Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Digital Darkness. Today we have a different kind of procedure that we're gonna try. In this case, it's going to be a little interview about a Japanese tabletop RPG called Dracurouge. Dracurouge was created in, I believe, 2014, and
Good.
right now is being played by an increasingly greater fandom on the English speaking side of tabletop RPGs. One such of these carriers of the word of Dracurouge is none other than just Jarn, which I will note their socials back down in the description. But for now, Jarn, tell us who you are.
Hi, I'm just Jarn, or Jarn for short. Yeah, I'm a GM. I've been GMing for quite some time now. Not that I try to use that as to impress anybody. But it's just like I love the art form. I love the medium of actually the tabletop role playing games, and yeah, I fell in love with Dracurouge. Once I came upon this game about a few years ago, and I have been absorbed by it since. Like it's been something that's been coming more of my like one of my favorite TTRPGs out there. And to be fair and honest, straight away, I'm not really down with the whole vampire thing. This got me into it, like it literally did. Like now it's just like, yo, this is like such an amazing game. I want to see more of it.
Okay. Well, we're in luck because I was into the vampire thing a decade ago. I still am, and that's one of the reasons why Dracurouge surprisingly didn't interest me at first. I was like, wow, Dracurouge is just fantasy vampire the masquerade, but on the good side. This feels so different to my zone of comfort that I didn't like it until recently, Jarn himself invited me to a little game of Dracurouge, and I kind of fell in love with it too. So that's why we're doing this video right now. I have a few questions that we agreed on asking, and let me just bring them back because the first question of this video is Jarn, how would you describe Dracurouge?
Oh gosh. Okay, so Dracurouge is a theatrical TTRPG. It literally has a board game element to it that it's used for the mechanics, kind of to lay out the stages and the scenes and everything else in between. But really, it's only there to anchor the dramatic and bombastic approach that the game takes to the Everdark. And in all honesty, it's a game. Oh man, the best way I could describe it is just like imagine. It's it's like Vampire the Masquerade meets anime, and it's all like wrapped up into theater. And so you have people kind of shouting out in old English or old German in this case, and it's just it's amazing. It's honestly a combination of different things that shouldn't work but fundamentally somehow do, and it's just like I love it so much.
I agree with all said previously in my little experience with Dracurouge. So, yeah. um, that said, Dracurouge belongs in a world called the Everdark. It's a different setting than the real world of Vampire the Masquerade, or many other vampire worlds such as Forgotten Realms, which is not vampire, but there's vampires on it. But how would you describe the Everdark to someone who doesn't know about it?
So to start off, the Everdark is a character within Dracurouge because it is essentially what kind of sets the stage and what gives precedence to the idea or the concept of vampires. Now, Dracurouge, understandably, is a game where a Japanese TTRPG that takes upon the idea of what a Western vampire is. And so one of the things that they did is that Ryu Kamiya, which is the author, went ahead and created the Everdark, basically stating that in this world, darkness rules. Now, in a world of darkness with vampires, I mean, they would be immortal, they would be untouchable, they'd be, gods, right, amongst mortals. And the thing is that one of the things that they did is basically state, oh, the Everdark. Uh, by the way, the Everdark was brought upon by this amazing battle that we have to describe in detail one day, you and I, where it's Lord Dracul, okay, aka Dracula, fights and kills the sun. He turns into a massive black dragon, fights up one entire day from morning until night. He fights the sun, rends it, and kills it, and actually smashes it into the earth. And then he himself, so beaten and wounded, he actually flies to the moon, and that's where he's at. And the reason that the moon within Dracurouge is gives off this pinkish hue is because the essence of Dracul fills it. Uh, but that's a story for another day. But no, the Everdark, what it does is basically put it, into perspective. Okay, so we have vampires. Are they the monstrous beings that need to feed on human blood in order to be able to survive? And so what they opted to do, which is something that's very common in a lot of Japanese TTRPGs that I've noticed, is that they try to bring in the emotional aspect
Mhm.
of it. So here in this world of the Everdark, vampires sustain themselves by emotions, both positive and negative. Positive being rouge, and negative known as noir. And so the world of Everdark is situated where six great clans are coming together to try to defend the realm of the Everdark from the things, the monster that dwell within the shadows. And funny fact is, the Everdark is not just filled with vampires; it's filled with all sorts of monsters and creatures. I mean, we could get into a long talk about every single type of heretic,
Mhm.
which are heretics are anyone that's not a knight. So, elves, goblins, trolls, anything that those are all heretics because they're not knights. But we can get into a long conversation about the various types of heretics that exist within the world. Some that exist, have existed long before the Everdark existed, and some that were created due to the machinations of the houses themselves.
All right. There's a lot to unravel here in the Everdark. It's surprisingly for what it's such a self-contained world, it's very expansive in the details that matter, which is something I always liked it. And in this world of the Everdark, this world where the moon is reddish pink and there's always night, what kind of stories can we expect to tell in a game like this?
So this is one of those settings, and I'm a person that I tend to enjoy a lot of TTRPGs that build the mechanics to make the world or the setting pop. Basically, like making these mechanics that coincide with the setting and giving it more validity. The setting in terms of the mechanics that are in it. And so since Dracurouge is based on again the concept that these knights sustain themselves by feeding on emotions. First off, you have dramatic stories you can tell. These are courtly stories. You can actually set up entire seasons or sessions where these individuals are just caught within an event, some sort of festival, a party, a grand ball, and basically there is a sense of mystery and wonder that you can actually entertain yourself with, you and your players playing this game. But at the same time, Dracurouge is, the Everdark is so wide open because you can actually have adventures where you go off to fight, these monsters that lurk in the darkness that cause havoc for the villagers, as well as you can even get into wars between the two houses. Between some of the houses, you can even have wars for territory because the houses, they work together to defend the Everdark, but not necessarily all of them have the same goals that align, and they might not all be on the best uh, have the best intentions for one another.
All right. That's something I didn't know myself. I was in the thought that all the houses were in harmony, surprisingly. So that's one thing I've learned from this interview. There's one question in which both you and I are going to be talking about rather than just me asking and being done. Because this is important, and I think this is very, very important for people to engage with the game from their perspective. And that is, what makes this game special to you, Jarn?
Oh man. Okay, so long story short,
Mm-hmm.
I loved playing Legend of the Five Rings. So that was my game, my RP, my go-to RP for many years.
Mm-hmm.
I've always loved, the sense of the politics, the etiquette, the sense of the culture within the world of Legend of the Five Rings and Rokugan. At one point or another, I actually opted to try to find a similar game, something that would have that same type of feel. And somehow, by luck, by chance, fate, whatever you want to call it, I landed upon Dracurouge. Dracurouge is one of those worlds, one of those settings where you have the ability to tell almost any plausible story. At the same time, the game reflects the necessity to be theatric, to be dramatic. This is a game where you can get your players to really delve deep into their characters and their emotions because you're not held to any other preconceived notions of mechanics like leveling or we need to find treasure or we need to have
Mm-hmm.
like some risk reward thing. Here, this is a gameplay of theatrics. um it's to me that's the thing that I love about this game the most. I can pinpoint characters, I can pinpoint the houses or some certain mechanics, but for the most part it's the fact that it tries to push the theatrics from the players and tries to go ahead and state, this game when you play it, go heavy, go ham on being dramatic. That move that your character's about to do, just really describe it well. Go over the top, have fun with it, and see where it goes. And I mean, my experience thus far is that I've had some of the best sessions where the players will describe their actions, and it's just been so like to use the word beautiful, but that's exactly it. It's just like this beautiful thing where it's just like everything harmonizes and comes together. And that's what I love about Draco Rouge.
It is one of the most interesting things to me because I also, as a player on one of your games of Dracurouge, I've been falling in love with the descriptions of every character doing their own little moves. If this ties to the next question about the how does the game play and if it's easy to pick up, because discussing the game is discussing a three-act theatrical play. However, these three-act theatrical plays, as you and I know, are divided into rounds, where each vampire gets to do actions in each of the rounds. And the most important thing about this is not about the mechanics of the rounds or anything like that. No, no. The important thing is how you describe them and how you roleplay. There's a whole chunk of text at the side of every single ability telling you how does it look like or how would you make it happen. And that's something that I think it's great, right? Like, it's beautiful to see how like a game tries to empower the roleplaying and the description to make it cinematic and flavorful rather than just saying it deals this damage.
I agree with you 100%. I honestly, as I had mentioned earlier, it provides the ability for the players to evoke their emotions into their actions as they are characters. The game doesn't, the game tries to not bog you down with, or the players down I should say, with, hey, this move has to be within this range and you have to be exactly from that distance,
Mhm.
and you have to check if it hits their armor class and see if it, if it's able to actually land damage, and if they have armor it might soak it, and so on and so forth. It gets rid of all the mechanics and just says, look, you have your move sets, right? As you said, we have these acts and scenes. The scenes will tell you or dictate what moves are available to you. And by the way, every character that is created has movesets which will be beneficial in any of the scenes. So your character never feels like, oh man, I should have been like better socially, or I should have been better, in terms of like conflicts and martial prowess and whatnot. Every character will have a combination of two and be actually successful within the scenes, and they can take action. And so the game is just like, we're going to get these moves. You're going to go ahead, figure out if you can use them with a dice roll, but then at the same time, you go ahead and you have fun describing it to you and your players. Now, the action does have, does do something, which is, the reaction or the action itself, like the what it actually does. But aside from that, it's just like, just have fun describing it. Just go nuts.
Yeah, that's the one piece of advice I would go for anyone going to try this game. Go nuts. It really encapsulates what you should be doing when playing Dracurouge.
It really does. And honestly, I think that after having played it for some time now and having other players come in, it's once they kind of click on it and figure out, okay, this is what the game is all about, in terms of being dramatic and over the top, they tend to enjoy it more. Because again, you're not bogged down and worried about mechanics. You're not sitting there and just like, oh man, my, I can only carry so much things, and my character has, X amount of strength, and now I got to worry about that. No, it gets away, from these mechanics, which again, it's those mechanics are meant to describe or at least try to encapsulate like a different concept, a different ideology. This game just says, look, this is more theater, less mechanics. This is more dramatic, less having to worry about little, game mechanics or little game things or nuances within a game. It's, just go out there and enjoy yourself.
Yeah, there's a lot going on, and this game has done so many things right, and despite doing them differently, it feels like it didn't miss at any single point. It it feels just great about that. Um, One of the things that I really felt it was very interesting. It was how like some abilities are called realizations, and they are supposed to like the vampire imagines something into reality, and that thing becomes actual, solid material. One
Like,
of
isn't that
my
cool?
It's
Isn't
super
that
cool.
cool? That is
Yeah.
so cool. I don't know why we didn't think about this before. I don't know why no one ever thought about that before. They probably did, in all fairness. But at
Hmm.
least for me, it's just like when I read this, I was like, wait a second. The vampire knights are able to realize anything into reality. So imagine you have your character. Here's, this character that you're playing right now. They're walking down a dusty road. All of a sudden, a massive night beast comes, barreling through the foliage, moving with, menace and killing intent towards your character. All of a sudden, you just lift up your hand, and in very anime-ish style, you go ahead and you summon up forth a claymore that's twice as big, twice the size of your body, and it's like your character can wield it without a problem. And it's just like, oh my gosh, that is such an amazing scene.
Yes. There's so many amazing things about the realizations, and I'm gonna get into like personal experiences here for both of us. John and I have been playing a couple of sessions, one shot and one session of an ongoing campaign that he's been running. I played the same character in both, and it was Franz of House Drac. Drac is one of the houses of Dracurouge, which we will get into in a moment. But the interesting, great thing about all this is that Franz, sorry about that, Franz can turn himself into a dragon through the power of his own imagination. And everybody loves that every time I get Franz to do. And there's one thing that I really loved about the game too, which is synergy. So to explain, there's abilities that enable other characters' abilities that help them and create a synergy between different characters, making each other be much more efficient as long as they are doing teamwork. And that's something that I think it's been like forgotten in most RPGs lately, you know?
Yeah, no, I would agree. I mean, honestly, in this game, there's several character types, right? Roles that you can take that, fundamentally are there to support other characters. And the way that they support other characters is just like, these combos where it's like one move. And I do apologize. I know I'm trying. I'm so eager right now talking about this, but it's just like the characters themselves. When you're playing the game, you can actually sit down with your fellow players and start like plotting some of these ideas, right? Like you can already determine who's going to be going in what narrative order. You can tell who's got what actions. The only thing that's left, to chance is the roll of the dice. But for the most part, if you can set up, a kind of move and pattern, you can definitely do these wild combos that were, you're fighting a massive beast, and you and your teammates all of a sudden just like wail on this poor thing, and it's just like the most beautiful action packed moment in the game, and it's just amazing. And the fun part is that everybody had a part in it.
Mm-hmm. I remember we had last week actually, a huge fight between two undead dragons, a zombie and a vampire dragon, and my friends was the vampire dragon, and it was one of the most epic things I've had in a game. And that ties to one of the most beautiful things about this game. Vampires are at their peak of their power.
Yes,
They're
yes, they
level
are.
20 right off the bat. They don't need improvements. They're not like, oh, we're gonna get stronger to face this monster. No, they already can. Go ham.
No, I mean that's actually an amazing point that you bring up, because a lot of gamers, right? A lot of role players, they tend to create their character, and they get attached to the character, as they should.
Mhm.
Like this is not the OGL days and whatnot, where people would create 10 sheets for character sheets for characters, and your character would probably die stubbing their toe on a wall or something.
Mhm.
And nowadays, like a lot of players, I realize, over the years, is that they create their character and they want their character to survive. They want their character to be the heroes. They want their characters to get to the eventual end that they saw for their character. And the aspect of that is really hard, because when you're playing a role-playing game, you also want to add that element. As a GM, you want to add that element of threats, right? Because if not, then if you tell the players, hey, you win all the time, then
Mhm.
at that point the game's not even fun anymore. It's just boring. It's just, hi, yeah, my character does whatever it does and they win automatically and I go home, goodbye. So it's just like, you want to add that certain element of threat. Now, Dracurouge comes about in this interesting way where it's like, hey, you guys are vampires at the peak of your power. The world around you has literally been created for you. You stand at the pinnacle of everything, right? The only thing above you is the moon, and that's Lord Dracul, and he's chilling there for right now. But everything else beneath you, like, you are beyond that. And with that, the game does not actually allow you to kill players. As a GM, you cannot kill players, not through fighting, not through, any sort of conflict that physically ails the player. You can't kill the characters that way, right? Sorry,
Mhm.
not players, the player characters. Let me make that
Yeah.
distinction before someone goes and gets mad at me. No, the player characters. So, what do? Well, they say, okay, you guys are at the peak of your perfection, but you're still bound by your emotions, by your rouge, by your noir. And the thing is that the more rouge you have, the more that your character feels, alive within the world. They have more power, they're stronger. The more noir that they have, they begin to fall to that eternal thirst that are no vampires are known for. And that's when your night becomes begins to fall and become a night beast. And so it kind of has that dynamic where it's just like, now when you go into a setting, into a situation, you have to worry about the emotional standpoint of your character, as you're engaged in the scene. Now, I will say though, Nate, I feel really, really bad, because there was a one shot that you and I played, and
Mhm.
sadly, I had aspects of the sun on the table, and the aspects of the sun are the only things that literally can kill a knight within Dracurouge. And I feel bad because
And
I did kill your character, and I'm so sorry. I did not
it's
mean to.
okay. The funny thing is that if I recall correctly, 4 out of 5 characters died that one shot.
Yeah, no, it was terrible, and I feel so bad. And I tried to have like the support character come in to help you guys, and then one of your team members was like, "Nope, we're gonna resist them too." And I was just like, "No." It
It's
was
such an interesting like little thing, and I really love how like the whole thing works on itself, like the theatrical play, the world where vampires are at the service of humanity, and loss or defeat is not the consequence of death but the consequence of others dying. The fact that a vampire must be consequent with their actions and responsible of human lives is such an interesting turn of the heel on normal vampire stories.
I know, and that's why it adds another depth and level to the world in such a way that it makes it not only interesting, but one that you want to partake in. Because now, at this point, you're portraying, instead of calling them vampires, now you're portraying what are known as knights, and it's just like these are the guardians of the Everdark, and they guard the people that live there. Which, by the way, again, please, you have to take it with a certain amount of disbelief, where it's just like the Everdark, it's the moon shining all the time, but how do things grow? That's magic. Just leave it at magic. How do people survive? Magic. Just leave it at magic. But it's just in that world where darkness has covered the land, where technically speaking, vampires now would be again almost like godlike figures amongst mortals. Now it's turned to where the cattle that they used to once feed on, which was human beings, now turns out to be the things that they need to defend, that they need to protect. And it's an interesting idea.
It's such a I don't know how to explain it, but it feels so amazing. And I just really think that for once the vampires being the good guys is a necessary trope. There's always like the boys, which is like, oh, superheroes are the bad guys, or Madoka Magica, oh, being magical girl is actually the worst fucking thing that ever happened to you. So being a vampire, being the good guy, as a deconstruction of the vampire genre, feels right. You know?
No, I agree. I mean, honestly, and I feel that this game does it really, really well. It does it to where first off, just because you're a vampire doesn't make you better than the rest of all the other creatures that are out there within the world, but it does give you a purpose. And the thing is that here you're portraying the guardians of the Everdark. You are portraying the defenders who will stand against the onslaught of vile creatures that are out there, or the elements of the sun. And at the same time, you're still a vampire.
Mm-hmm.
That's the thing that's amazing to me. It's just like that's such a clever idea.
I yeah, it's just I could keep gushing about it, but normally I had one more question planted to you, which is what houses or factions are in the game, as we established prior. But I think that hitting the 29-minute mark, we should probably consider that for a different episode, if anything, or letting it be written somewhere, maybe in a blog post that you may want to like get, that we could direct them to you. It depends. Nonetheless, I want to say, Jarn, thank you so much for staying with us on Digital Darkness for tonight. The music, by the way, is by Ivan Dutch. It's called Vampires Volume 1. And, last but not least, you can play Dracurouge online on Startplaying Games because Jarn is actually offering paid games of it. And you
That I am.
should totally play it. You should totally pay to play it because it's such a great game, you will not regret it. You'll be glad you
Honest.
did.
Oh my gosh! Honestly, most of the people that have attempted it and have tried it have all come back like stating, "Man, this is a great game." And my only wish is to spread the good word on this game, because Dracurouge is one of those games that just stands just enough apart from everything else that's out there to make it unique, but at the same time, the mechanics, the way that it functions is so good. And again, it's one of those types of games where if you love to tell stories, if you love to get into the narrative of your character, if you love to get into the emotional state of your character, this is the game for you.
Yes. Okay. So that wraps it up for this one interview. Thank you, Jarn, once again for being with us. I will post
Thank
your
you for having me.
socials. I'll post your socials back in the description, and we will maybe see you in a future episode, possibly if things go on an interesting route and people want to hear more about the lore of the Everdark. We'll see. Until then, only the Lord Dracul knows. That being said, see you guys on the next video.